The fluorescent hum of the forward operating base, a sterile counterpoint to the raw, untamed desert that clawed at its perimeter, did little to soften the edges of Ayala Volkov's world. Even within the sprawling utilitarian maze of concrete barriers and razor wire, she moved like a whisper, a shadow that clung to the periphery, almost imperceptible. Her Marine Staff Sergeant's utilities crisply starched despite the omnipresent dust draped over a frame that was deceptively slight, often leading to swift, erroneous judgments from those who hadn't yet learned to look past the surface. Her dark hair, a disciplined knot at the nape of her neck, seemed to absorb the harsh overhead light rather than reflect it, a small, defiant act of quiet intensity. Ayala was an anomaly, a Marine Scout sniper discreetly attached to Commander Gideon Vance's elite SEAL team. Her true purpose, a closely guarded secret known only to Vance himself. For operational security and perhaps a subtle test of the team's inherent biases, she was introduced merely as support staff, an intel specialist, a comms aide, a ghost in the machine. It was a role she embraced, cultivating the perception of an unassuming presence, a camouflage far more effective than any multicam pattern. This deliberate anonymity was a shield, a silent challenge, and a crucible in which her own resolve was constantly refined. The air in the briefing room was thick with the scent of stale coffee and the metallic tang of impending action. Holographic projections shimmered above the table, rendering a jagged, unforgiving stretch of mountainous terrain near the Pakistani border. Commander Vance, a man whose 38 years had etched a landscape of quiet authority onto his features, his eyes the color of storm-swept slate, stood at the head of the table. His call sign, Ironheart, was well-earned, a testament to a resolve that had never fractured even in the face of the abyss. He spoke with a measured cadence, his voice a low rumble that cut through the tension, detailing the high-value target HVT elimination mission. Our primary target, codenamed Viper, is confirmed to be at this compound. Vance indicated a cluster of mud brick structures nestled precariously in a remote valley, approximately 1,400 meters from our planned overwatch position. His gaze swept across the faces of his team, resting momentarily on Petty Officer Liam Vance, the SEAL team's primary sniper. Liam, 32, with a confident, almost predatory glint in his eagle eyes, leaned forward, absorbing every detail. 3 deployments and 47 confirmed kills had forged a reputation around him, an aura of undeniable competence. Distance to target 800 meters from the primary hide, Liam confirmed, his voice smooth assured. Wind currents look manageable from the ridge. We'll have a clear line of sight, Commander. His finger tapped a point on the holographic map, a natural, almost instinctual gesture of mastery. Ayala, seated at the periphery, her presence barely acknowledged by the others, watched Liam. She saw the skill, the innate talent that had earned him his call sign Eagle. But she also saw the subtle arrogance, the quiet certainty that came from a string of successes, a certainty that in the brutal theater of contemporary warfare could be a fatal flaw. Her own mind, a living supercomputer of ballistics and environmental variables, was already dissecting the terrain, calculating unseen wind shifts, anticipating the chaotic ballet of a truly volatile engagement. Liam's 800-meter shot, while impressive to most, was merely a prelude to the symphony of controlled destruction she knew could be demanded. A phantom ache, cold and sharp, stirred in her chest. It was the ghost of her older brother, Sergeant Ronan Volkov, a Marine whose life had been extinguished 7 years prior in the dust-choked plains of Helmand Province. Inadequate sniper support, the official report had tersely concluded. Those 3 words had carved a canyon in Ayala's soul, a void she had spent every waking moment trying to fill with an unyielding pursuit of perfection. Her motivation wasn't glory, but a sacred, silent vow. No other team would suffer Ronan's fate. No other family would receive that knock on the door, that sterile, crushing news. Movement will commence at 2300 hours. Commander Vance continued, pulling Ayala back from the precipice of memory. Insertion via halo jump, then a 6-hour trek through the Zarnak Mountains. Stealth and precision are paramount. Any questions? Silence. The team was a well-oiled machine, each man a cog in a lethal mechanism, and they knew their roles. Ayala, however, felt a different kind of silence, a deeper one. She had no questions, only calculations, predictions, and a quiet, burning resolve. She wasn't just hearing the plan, she was already living it, mapping every contour of the mountains, every potential threat, every impossible angle. The night swallowed them whole, a canvas of impenetrable black, punctuated only by the distant, indifferent glitter of a million stars. The chill mountain air, thin and biting, whipped around their faces as they descended from the C-130, the roar of the engines fading to a distant hum. Ayala, clad in her multicam utilities and laden with her precision rifle, A custom-built .308 Winchester, its high-end optics glinting faintly under the starlight, moved with an almost ethereal grace. Her pack, despite its weight, seemed to become an extension of her body, her every step economical, deliberate. The 6-hour infiltration through the Zarnak Mountains was a brutal test of endurance, a relentless upward climb over jagged scree and through narrow, winding passes. The rugged landscape, ancient and indifferent, seemed to conspire against them, each rock a potential ankle breaker, each gust of wind a threat to their concealment. Sergeant Major Kai Jensen, the team's breacher, a man whose thick beard and watchful eyes earned him the call sign Stone Bear, moved with the powerful ground-eating stride of a seasoned warrior. He was the quintessential team player, always casting a glance over his shoulder, ensuring his comrades were safe. When his eyes briefly flickered to Ayala, he saw only a small, determined figure keeping pace, but nothing that hinted at the coiled viper within. His initial concern, a primal instinct to protect what he perceived as a vulnerable support asset, was a silent testament to the team's collective misjudgment. Specialist Reese Caldwell, the youngest member at 26, whispered to his teammates, was a whirlwind of youthful energy, eager and genuinely helpful. He offered Ella a hand over a particularly treacherous patch of loose rock, his innocent gesture a subtle reminder of the chasm between his perception of her and her true capabilities. Ayala accepted the help with a curt nod, her gaze already scanning the ridge ahead, assessing the next challenge, her mind perpetually engaged in a silent, solitary chess game against the unforgiving terrain. They moved in an almost spiritual communion with the darkness, each man a breath, a shadow, a whisper. The only sounds were the crunch of their combat boots on loose shale, the rustle of their tactical gear, and the rhythmic beat of their own hearts. Ella's breathing was a controlled exhalation, her senses heightened, absorbing every nuance of the environment, the subtle shift in wind direction, the distant howl of a jackal, the faint scent of wood smoke carried on the frigid air. She was an extension of the night, seamlessly integrating into the formation, her physical endurance and tactical awareness going unnoticed by her comrades, who were focused on their own burdens, their own vigilance. As the first tendrils of pre-dawn light began to paint the eastern horizon in hues of bruised purple and pale rose, they reached their designated overwatch position. The air, once a suffocating blanket of darkness, now thinned, revealing the target compound nestled in the valley below, a collection of stark, unadorned structures that seemed to cling to the earth. The silence was absolute, a heavy, pregnant pause before the storm. Each SEAL settled into their position, checking their gear, their rifles, their comms. Liam Vance, positioned a few meters to Ayala's left, adjusted his scope, his breath, even his focus absolute. He was a hunter, poised confident. Ayala, however, felt a prickle of unease. The stillness was too perfect, the morning too serene. She swept her optics across the terrain, not just at the compound, but at the surrounding ridges, the unexpected folds in the landscape, the places where shadows still clung like malevolent spirits. Her gut, honed by countless hours of training and the cold, hard lessons of her brother's fate, screamed a silent warning. There was something off, a discordant note in the otherwise flawless symphony of their approach. Commander Vance's voice, a low rasp in their earpieces, broke the silence. Target acquisition. Viper is confirmed leaving the main structure, moving towards the armored vehicle. Liam Vance's voice, calm and precise, followed. Got him, Commander, holding for a clear shot. Ayala held her breath, her rifle already subtly shifting her mind, calculating, anticipating. Her instincts were screaming now a visceral alarm. She felt a subtle tremor in the earth before she heard it, a faint vibration that spoke of movement, of hidden intent. Her eyes, sharp and unblinking, darted to a distant rocky outcrop 700 meters to the east, a position deemed insignificant in the initial intel. Then the world shattered. A sharp crack, impossibly loud in the pre-dawn stillness, ripped through the air. It was the unmistakable report of a high-powered rifle, a sound that echoed not from their target, but from the very outcrop Ayala had been watching. A searing flash, a brief violent spark of displaced air erupted near Liam Vance's position. Contact! Liam's voice, usually so steady, was now a strangled cry laced with a raw, agonizing pain. Snipered, I'm hit East Ridge 700 meters. A guttural grunt, a sickening thud, and Liam's body slumped, his precision rifle clattering against the rocks. Blood, a dark, blossoming stain, seeped into the dry earth beneath him. Chaos erupted below, a sudden, frenzied explosion of small arms fire from the compound. The meticulously planned operation. The months of intelligence gathering, the flawless infiltration, disintegrated in an instant. The carefully constructed plan, delicate as spun glass, had just been shattered, and with it, the lives of men hung precariously in the balance. Ayala, Shadow Serpent, felt a cold, familiar calm settle over her. The ghost of Ronan Volkov, ever present, now stood beside her, a silent witness. The world had just ruptured, and it was her turn to repair it. The crisp desert air, still holding the faint chill of dawn, seemed to hum with a new unspoken reverence. The events of the previous mission had stripped away the layers of polite skepticism, leaving behind a stark, undeniable truth. Staff Sergeant Kira Volkov was not merely support. She was a force of nature, a silent, predatory grace that had carved a path through chaos. Commander Elias Stoneheart Thorne, his gaze now openly acknowledging her formidable presence, had wasted no time. Kira was officially and permanently attached to his elite SEAL team. Her ranks swiftly elevated her true purpose, no longer a whispered secret. The transformation in the team was palpable. Ronan Grizzly O'Connell's watchful eyes now held a profound respect. Finn Echo Hayes' youthful admiration was unreserved, and even Petty Officer Kalen Hawkeye Thorne, still nursing his wound, looked at her with an awe that bordered on veneration. But for Kira, the accolades felt like dust on her tongue. Each life saved, each target neutralized, was a silent echo of the one life she couldn't save, her brother Liam. His ghost, ever present, was both her relentless engine and her quiet torment. The next mission, a specter of audacious impossibility, was already coalescing in the sterile glow of the briefing room. The mile-long thread. The target, a shadowy bomb maker weaving his tapestry of destruction from a fortified compound nestled deep within a treacherous mountain range over 1,400 meters away. A secondary objective, the capture of a high-value individual, an elusive financier often found in the bomb maker's company. Thorne's voice, usually a low rumble of authority, held a rare tremor of doubt as he laid out the coordinates. "This is beyond extreme range, Iron Serpent," he stated, his eyes fixed on Kira. "We're talking about pushing the absolute limits of a rifle and a shooter." Kalen, propped up in his chair, a grimace of pain twisting his features, nodded slowly. "A mile-long shot, even with a .338 Lapua Magnum. That's a prayer, sir." Kira's gaze swept over the holographic terrain map, her mind already dissecting. Wind patterns, elevation, changes, the Coriolis effect, the subtle curvature of the Earth itself. She saw not a prayer, but a problem. A complex, beautiful problem. "It's achievable," she said, her voice a soft, unwavering counterpoint to the room's tension, "given adequate preparation and a stable platform." For 3 days, the desert became her laboratory, the vast, empty expanse her canvas. She worked with a quiet, almost ritualistic intensity, her movements economical, her focus absolute. She wasn't merely practicing. She was communing with her rifle, a custom-built beast of steel and carbon fiber. Each component a testament to precision engineering. Every gust of wind, every shift in temperature, every subtle tremor of the Earth was cataloged, analyzed, absorbed. She fired hundreds of rounds, not at targets, but at the very air, observing the infinitesimal dance of the bullet as it battled gravity and drag across impossible distances. She didn't aim, she calculated, her mind, a living supercomputer processing algorithms of destruction, her body a finely tuned instrument of execution. She saw the projectile's arc not as a line, but as a delicate, invisible thread, a mile long, that she would weave through the fabric of fate. Liam's face, etched in her memory, spurred her on. Never again. No team left vulnerable. The infiltration was a ballet of shadows and whispers. Under the obsidian cloak of a moonless night, the team moved through the jagged, unforgiving terrain. Kira, a wraith among phantoms, carried her rifle with the effortless grace of a dancer, its weight a familiar extension of her own resolve. They reached their overwatch position, a precarious perch on a windswept ridge, as the first bruised streaks of dawn bled across the eastern sky. Below, the compound lay like a sleeping serpent, its mud brick walls and corrugated iron roofs blending seamlessly with the ochre landscape. Kira settled into her prone position, the cold bite of the earth seeping through her combat fatigues. Her eye found the scope, a window into a world impossibly distant. The bomb maker, a corpulent figure, emerged from a low doorway, stretching in the nascent light. Beside him, the HVBY, a lean, nervous man, lit a cigarette. They were well over a mile away, 2 distant specks in her magnified world. The wind, a capricious demon, whispered across the ridge, tugging at her hair, attempting to derail her calculations. Her internal monologue was a torrent of data. Elevation plus 400 feet. Wind 7 miles per hour, gusting to 3 o'clock. Humidity 15%. Temperature 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Coriolis negligible at this latitude. Spin drift accounted for. She took a breath, slow and deep, her world narrowing to the crosshairs, the 2 figures, and the infinite space between them. Her finger, a feather-light touch on the trigger, began its inexorable press. There was no sound, only the faint internal click of her own focus. The shot was an act of faith backed by an unholy amount of science. The rifle bucked a controlled explosion, the muzzle flash a brief, violent flower in the pre-dawn gloom. The bullet, a whisper of death, began its journey. It arced it, spun it, fought the unseen forces, a tiny metallic arrow piercing the vast canvas of the sky. A full 2.7 seconds later, the bomb-maker's head snapped back, a crimson mist erupting against the drab wall. He collapsed, a puppet whose strings had been abruptly severed. The HVOI startled, screamed, dropping his cigarette, and scrambled towards a waiting armored vehicle, its engine already idling. Target down, Kira's voice calm and even, cut through the radio chatter. Secondary target, attempting egress, armored vehicle 812 meters, moving left to right. The vehicle, a crude but effective armored pickup, lurched forward. Thorne's voice crackled. Negative on the vehicle. Iron Serpent. Too much armor, we need him alive. Kira didn't hesitate. She knew her rifle knew its capabilities. She didn't need to penetrate the armor. She needed to disable the driver. Adjusting for lead for the subtle acceleration of the vehicle, she squeezed the trigger again. This time the shot was even more audacious, a surgical strike through a minute opening. The bullet, a phantom seeking its mark, screamed across the distance. It punched through the driver's side window, a near impossible feat of precision, shattering the glass and finding its mark. The vehicle veered wildly, swerving into a mud brick wall. With a sickening crunch, the driver slumped over the wheel. Driver neutralized. Secondary target contained. Kira announced, her voice still devoid of triumph, merely stating facts. Below, the SEALs moved in a whirlwind of controlled aggression. They extracted the wounded HVOI, his face a mask of terror, from the crumpled vehicle. The compound was secured, the mission accomplished with an almost supernatural efficiency. Back on the ridge, the team watched Kira, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and profound admiration. Kalen, his jaw slack, finally found his voice. A mile, and through a moving window. Good God, Iron Serpent. Ronan simply shook his head, a slow, appreciative grin spreading across his bearded face. That wasn't a shot, Kira. That was a miracle. For Kira, it was simply the application of physics, the culmination of relentless training, and the silent imperative of Liam's memory. Her legend, already nascent, now resonated through the corridors of the special operations community, a testament to her unparalleled mastery. The Crucible of Fire. The next major operation was a sprawling multi-agency assault on a sprawling compound, rumored to house a high-level insurgency cell. It was a joint endeavor, a symphony of coordinated chaos involving multiple SEAL teams. Kira found herself among a cadre of other elite snipers, Chief Warrant Officer Reese Apex Kincaid, a man whose 100-plus confirmed kills had earned him a reputation as the best, and who initially regarded Kira with a dismissive air of confident superiority. Petty Officer Lena Vigil Rostova, a sharp, pragmatic shooter who observed Kira with a keen professional eye, and Petty Officer Jax Ghost Riley, a young urban combat specialist whose quiet intensity betrayed a deep hunger to learn. Kira was assigned to a vulnerable position, a derelict water tower overlooking the main approach, offering an unparalleled field of fire, but making her a prime target. Reese, Lena, and Jax were positioned on surrounding rooftops, forming a deadly perimeter. The initial assault went according to plan, a precise, brutal sweep. But then, as dawn broke fully, the carefully constructed plan fractured. A torrent of unexpected enemy reinforcements emerging from hidden tunnels and a nearby wadi slammed into their flank. The element of surprise shattered, replaced by the deafening roar of automatic fire and the concussive thump of RPGs. Chaos erupted. Water tower, you've got incoming, Thorne's voice, sharp with urgency, ripped through Kira's comms. Tracers zipped past her head, chipping concrete from the tower's aged structure. She saw Reese Kincaid on a rooftop 300 meters to her left, reel back, clutching his arm, a crimson stain blossoming on his sleeve. Apex is hit. Lena's voice, usually calm, was laced with alarm. He's exposed. They're flanking his position through the tunnels. Kira's mind, a cold, calculating onion, processed the incoming data. Her position was compromised. Reese was wounded and vulnerable, and the enemy was rapidly consolidating. This was not a moment for deliberation, but for instinct. The unstoppable force, displacing Kira, barked into her comms, her voice a low growl of controlled fury. She didn't retreat. She displaced. Under a hail of direct fire, she moved with astonishing speed and agility, a blur of combat gear descending the ladder, her rifle held tight. She didn't seek cover. She sought a better vantage point, a new angle of attack. She dove into a collapsed section of a nearby wall, the dust and debris momentarily obscuring her. From her new, more concealed position, she began to weave her terrible tapestry. Her rifle, Iron Serpent, became an extension of her will, spitting death with a relentless surgical precision. The first enemy fighter emerging from a tunnel to flank Reese crumpled a neat hole punched through his skull. The second, a machine gunner attempting to suppress Lena, fell silent, his weapon clattering to the ground. Kira didn't just shoot, she prioritized. She saw the battlefield as a complex equation, each enemy combatant a variable to be solved, each shot a precise calculation of threat and opportunity. The firefight raged around her, a maelstrom of noise and violence, but Kira moved through it with an almost serene detachment. Her breathing was steady, her heart rate a controlled rhythm. She was the eye of the storm, the anchor in the tempest. One by one, the enemy fighters attempting to overwhelm Reese's position were systematically eliminated. A sniper in a window, a grenadier advancing through the rubble, a cluster of militants attempting to breach the compound's main gate. Each met the same fate, a single perfectly placed round. She was under constant, intense pressure, the air thick with the smell of cordite and dust bullets impacting inches from her head. But Kira's focus was absolute. She saw the subtle movements, the fleeting exposures, the almost imperceptible tells that betrayed an enemy's presence. Her rifle spoke 28 times in a span of less than 10 minutes, each shot a final irrefutable argument. By the time the dust settled, the last of the enemy reinforcements had been either neutralized or routed. The compound secured and Reese Kincaid, bleeding but alive, was being tended to by a medic. Kira had not only saved his life, but had single-handedly broken the enemy's counterattack, turning the tide of a rapidly deteriorating situation. Reese, pale with pain, looked at her with an expression of profound, almost religious awe. The confident superiority was gone, replaced by a humbling gratitude. Lena and Jax, witnessing her masterclass in sustained precision under fire, regarded her not just as a peer, but as a legend in the making. The weight of the star. Weeks later, amidst the solemn grandeur of a military ceremony, Kira stood on a polished parade ground, the desert sun glinting off the medals pinned to her dress uniform. Commander Thorne, his face etched with pride, pinned the silver star to her chest, a testament to her exemplary courage and unparalleled skill. The applause was thunderous, the commendations effusive, but for Kira, the weight of the silver star felt like a leaden burden. Later, in the quiet solitude of her bunk, she opened her private notebook. On its worn pages, she meticulously recorded each confirmed kill, a stark tally of lives taken. Today, the number had swelled to 28. Each mark was not a trophy, but a somber reminder of a life extinguished, a responsibility borne. The memory of Liam, not as a catalyst for action, but as a haunting presence, resurfaced with an almost unbearable clarity. He had died because the sniper support wasn't enough. She had become the answer to that inadequacy, a singular lethal force. But at what cost? The internal conflict raged within her, a silent battle of purpose. Was her destiny to continue as a weapon, a lone wolf whose precision saved lives, one mission at a time, each kill, a painful increment to her own soul? Or was there a greater path, a way to multiply her impact, to ensure that no other team, no other brother would ever fall due to a lack of unparalleled precision? The cold mathematical imperative of saving more lives through mentorship, through teaching, began to assert itself. The thought of forging a new generation of iron serpents, of multiplying her lethal grace, resonated with a deep, almost spiritual calling. The teacher's path. Commander Thorne, a man who saw beyond the obvious, approached her a few days later, his eyes holding a knowing depth. "They're offering you a specialized sniper instructor position, Kira," he said, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "A chance to build the next generation, to shape them in your image." Kira looked at him, her gaze unwavering. He understood. He saw the burden she carried, the quiet fire that drove her. "It's a different kind of fight, Iron Serpent," he continued, "but perhaps a more important one in the long run. To ensure Liam's sacrifice wasn't in vain for others." The mention of Liam, so rarely spoken by others, solidified the quiet conviction that had been growing within her. The decision, though agonizing, was clear. Her purpose was not merely to be the best, but to create the best. To pass on the knowledge, the discipline, the almost spiritual connection to the rifle that she possessed. "I accept, Commander," she said, the words feeling both heavy and liberating. The next 3 months were a blur of intense, focused transition. Kira poured herself into mentoring Kalen Thorne and Reese Kincaid, transforming them from exceptionally skilled shooters into true precision artists. She didn't just teach them ballistics, she taught them her philosophy. She taught them to see the battlefield as a living entity, to anticipate, to adapt, to control chaos, not through brute force, but through perfect preparation and an unwavering mental fortitude. She showed Reese how to shed his ego, how to embrace continuous learning, how to find the almost impossible shots not through bravado, but through meticulous calculation and an unshakable inner calm. She instilled in Kalen a deeper understanding of the rifle's soul, pushing him beyond natural talent into the realm of true mastery. They emerged from her tutelage not as mere replacements, but as formidable forces in their own right, imbued with a piece of her unique tactical genius, forging the future. The specialized sniper instructor campus was a stark, functional environment, a crucible designed to forge warriors. The air was thick with the scent of gun oil and ambition. Kira, now stripped of her combat gear, stood before a class of 24 eager yet visibly skeptical sniper candidates. Among them was Cadet Alara Starlight Vance, a young woman whose quiet determination and piercing gaze mirrored Kira's own nascent fire years ago. Alara, underestimated by many, saw Kira not just as an instructor, but as a beacon, a living testament to what was possible for a woman in this unforgiving world. Kira surveyed the faces before her, a blend of raw talent and untested resolve. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of experience, the undeniable authority of a legend. "You are here because you believe you are good," she began, her eyes sweeping over each student. "You are here because you want to be better. I am here to tell you that better is not enough. You will learn to be absolute. You will learn to control every variable, to master every nuance, to become one with your weapon." She paused, letting her words hang in the air, a challenge and a promise. "Your mission from this day forward is no longer to take lives, but to save them. You will be the silent guardians, the unseen angels of precision. You will hunt in silence. You will never miss." Her gaze settled on Alara Vance, a flicker of recognition passing between them. Kira knew with an almost spiritual certainty that her legacy would not be measured in her own confirmed kills, but in the countless lives saved by her students across 100 different battlefields. Liam's memory, once a source of pain and singular drive, had transformed into a profound, enduring purpose. She was no longer just Iron Serpent, the predator who never missed. She was the forge shaping a new generation of silent protectors, ensuring that the whisper of a perfectly placed bullet would always be there, a mile-long thread to secure victory and bring their comrades home. The hunt had changed, but the mission, fueled by a brother's memory, remained eternal and uncompromising.